Our speaker this evening has quite an impressive background. He was formerly CTO of Microsoft Israel. He was also formerly COO of Amdocs Cloud Services. Please welcome the CEO and co-founder of CoolaData, Tomer Ben Moshe.
Thank you very much, guys. Such a warm welcome. I couldn't expect for anything more than that. So I'm not going to throw any more t-shirts, but what we want to talk about a little bit is about behavioral analytics. Now, I just want to get some raise of hands. How many people here are dealing with database in their everyday life? How many people here are like programmers? How many people do fun things? A lot of people. Now, we're going to have 3 speakers today. I'm going to talk about behavioral analytics and about a language that we think is needed in order to do that. Then we'll have another partner of us that will just show you what we do in the real-time world. And then we'll have Eyal from Coca-Cola. We're going to join me and we're going to discuss how Coca-Cola and other big brands need and trying to go into that direction. Now, I just have one question. How many people here know what SQL is? How many people here write SQL? Wow. Good for you. So, here's the thing. What are you doing with your data? What people do with the data? Usually, you have a lot of KPI, key performance indicator, that you're trying to find out. How many new users I have? What are the MAU, monthly active users, the daily active users? I want to group them by region, by gender, by location, and so forth. And I want to see different, split them by device and so forth. This is what we call the slice and dice analytics, the pivoting analytics. Now, KPIs are great for monitoring your business. They're great to understand who did something, what did they do, and when they did it. But they are not good enough when you're trying to understand how things happen. Now, the way we look at things, the world is changing. We no longer care who you are, we care what you do. Or let me be more politically correct. We care less about who you are, we care more about what you do. Why we don't care less about who you are? Because in the internet age, we don't really know who you are. We're not, a lot of online companies, a lot of devices that you use don't know how many people in your family, how much you're making, your gender, etc. Something that we used to know a lot when we work with the bank, with the telco, with the retailer. That we also don't know usually how much money do you spend with us. We only know how do you behave. And that's where the whole notion of behavioral segmentation. Behavioral segmentation is the notion of able to segment people based on their behavior. And that's where the whole world is moving. That is coming together with another notion of time series analytics, event-based analytics, trying to understand how things happen over time. Time becomes a very critical factor in our life. But actually, it used to be always a critical factor. But recently, with all what is going on with us, with all the activity we're doing, people try to look at things, how they happen, in terms of time series. What happened over time? And based on understanding what happened over time, it will be much easier to make analysis as compared to what it used to be before. Now think about it. It's not applicable only for people. It's applicable for a car that you want to understand. The car will send you an events of all the things that happen in the car, and then you'll be able to understand what are the patterns that the car used to do. So the whole notion of event-based analytics, of time series analytics, that's where we're all trying to think more and more. And that's because we really don't know who you are and we care what you do. Now, that's where behavioral analytics comes into play. The whole understanding of why things happen is something that will help us to identify how they happen. And that's where we try to track events, data points, events that happen over time. Events can be someone who searched, then he clicked on add to cart, and another add to cart, and then he checked out, and then he canceled the order. It can also be that you start your TV, you play the song, you rewind 3 times, and then you rewind again, which means you just want to hear a specific thing that's happening all the time. Or it can be any set of activities and actions that you're doing. And if we will be able to capture all those events over time and analyze this vast amount of data based on the different events that people do, then we'll be able to understand what they actually meant, why things happen, because we will be able to identify patterns and compare them to others. Now, behavior analytics suddenly introduced different visualization and different terms. Anyone here knows what funnel is? Don't be shy. Anybody here knows what path is? Path analysis? Even less. Cohort analysis? Retention? So, as you can see, those are terms that are not known by many of the people. But if I ask you, do you know Excel? A lot of people will say yes. Can you slice and dice by region versus by product? Yes. And that's where the world of behavior analytics introducing new ways of analyzing sequence of events that happens and analyzing how groups, how cohorts behave over time. Now, they also require a different visualization. This is no longer just charts or tables or graphs. Suddenly you need to visualize things differently. Look at the path analysis. I want to see all the different paths that people did that yield into a specific action. Cohort analysis is taking them and driving them into some sort of a direction that people goes. All those things are things that you will need to have when you try to go into behavioral analytics. Now, when we came up with CoolaData, we thought about many things. We collect the data all the way from the application or from the device, enrich it, send it to the servers, and do a lot of stuff with it, and then make it available for analytics. So we close the whole loop. So when someone wants to do behavior analytics, he will focus on the analytics, on the language, and not on the infrastructure. However, we're having many years of BI, big data, and so forth. But what we want to do is make it more accessible. Now, I asked how many people here know SQL. Unlike Cohort and unlike Funnel and unlike Path, almost everybody raised his hand. Now we're going to ask some trivia questions about SQL, not like Erica, something real, but SQL is something that everybody knows. However, SQL is what we call a set-based language. A set-based language is a language that takes a set of data and can show it and compare it by pivoting the data or showing how a set is performed. However, when we looked at time series data, at what we call event-based data, we're looking at a different way of querying things. How many people here know the terms MapReduce? So MapReduce is a term that's coming from the world of Hadoop, but MapReduce theoretically is taking a group of data points, apply something on them, then take the results and apply the same thing or different things on them. Think of a recursive things that happen again and again and again and again. Now, SQL language is not suitable for that. But at the same time, anyone who wrote those things, anyone here wrote MapReduce jobs or Hive? So very much less than people who knows what it is, right? That means that there's not a lot of skill set to do that. So what if we could combine the two and extend the SQL query language with behavioral extensions? So we'll bring the behavioral analytics together with the set-based capabilities. And that's when we came up with the idea that instead of inventing new language or let people do a lot of scripts, a lot of things that people don't like, why don't they use their regular, everyday SQL language and simply extend it with behavioral capabilities. And we'll show you some examples. So when you look and think about behavioral, event-based, there are some terms that you want to get familiar with. What do you have with time series? There are actions, and in the actions, there is sequence between the actions. And to that, you add some functions that you want to analyze those things. And the last thing is clusters. You want to cluster things. So on actions, you want to ask something happened or didn't happen, or nothing happened or anything happened. In terms of sequence, I want anything that start with, end with, start with directly. Start happened 3 times, 4 times. We need to add those verbs or those terms into the language. Then you want to be able some specific functions for behavioral. And last but not least, to be able to cluster those behaviors such as cohort, funnel, and path. And it's not about capabilities, it's about simplicity, about making things more accessible for anyone. That I think after this session you understand how important it is, but also how easy it is compared to what couldn't be done before. So just to get the notion is let's see, I want to see anyone who start with a specific event and followed by another event. So get me all the users who started with login and followed by checkout, and then followed by cancel order, and then followed by fuel the car, and then followed, etc., etc., etc. But I can do a lot of trick with it. They follow directly by, or end with, or start with, or play song 3 times, at least 3 times. So you can have a lot of, I would say, verbs and a lot of manipulation you can do on events in order to understand. I want everybody, and I want all the users that played at least 3 songs and listen them for more than 5 times. That's an example of type of users who are loyal users, who like a specific genre, etc., etc. Now, I'll show you 3 examples just to get the notion. Cohort analysis. So what is cohort analysis? In a nutshell, cohort analysis is an extension of the term retention. What is retention? People who doesn't want to leave you. Who doesn't want to leave you? Someone who loves you, right? Why does he love you? Because you give him something good, either for free, like t-shirts, or you give him something that's value. Now you try to see if there's someone who doesn't want to leave you, maybe you want him to leave. Does he do it on a continuous basis? So from a group of people, from a cohort of people, I want to know how they behave over time. So if there were people who registered, who bought the iPhone, how many of them bought it again and again every week? This is an example of a retention. From the people who download my game, how many weeks? From the people who download on Sunday, how many of them played it week after week? The people who download on Monday, how they behave week after week. That's an example of a retention of people. Why? Because maybe people who download games on Sunday are different than the people who download the game on Tuesday. Now, you would think, what the hell is he talking about? How come Sunday or Tuesday relates to that? And the answer is, I don't care. If I'll be able to see a pattern of behavior, that people on Tuesday are more loyal than the people on Sunday, here it is. I'll target differently the people of Tuesday rather than the people of Sunday. Now, cohort analysis, and what we did in CoolaData, we just extended, is the ability to see a correlation of group of people, how they behave over time, over different actions. So not just for people who download the game, how many played. From the people who played, how many of them spend more than $5 every week? Or here in this example, so we thought how we'll manifest that in a language that is easy to read. So in a regular SQL, I want to select the distinct users grouped by region. How many users I have per region? But if I want to see the cohort of users, I will select whatever I want, and I will simply say, okay, I want to cluster the cohort by country. So I want to see the group of users by country, and I want anyone who registered per country, how many of them clicked an ad on 30-day bucket. So as you can see here, you see that actually the people who all three were active on day 1 and day 3, so they're 100% retention. So the French guys were the most loyal. Now, this is an example of cohort analysis. And you can think about cohort analysis in any aspect of your life, not just in the aspect of online. Think about, I always like to give an example of a healthcare. From the people who visit this doctor, how many of them came again and again and again? Or they took a specific medicine and just actually took it in a different day, or et cetera, et cetera. So you want to be able to group it by different categories and properties, just as you would do with a regular SQL, but you want to embed it into cohort analysis. Now, why would you do all of that? Any idea what someone would want to know all this information? What do you do with that?
Suggestion algorithms.
Suggestions, algorithm. Exactly. The idea is that if I know that someone is loyal to me on a recurring basis, I'll be able to offer him something that is different than the others. If I will be able to build a cohort analysis and to take this group of people that is loyal and to get their user ID and send them notification, or the next time they log in or they do something, give them a different promotion from the people who didn't log in so much, then it will be very powerful. So it's not about just nice dashboards and visualization. It's about being actionable and what we call operational behavior analytics. I'll be able to target the users based on their previous behavior as they come and start to join or start to use my service, my app, or whatever. So this is one example of cohort analysis. Another example is a path analysis. Path analysis is very interesting. You know, there are different ways that people consume, or let me say differently. There's different ways that people play a game. There are different ways that people buy something over an e-commerce. There's different ways that people drive a car, etc., etc. What I want to do is to find paths and group them together and to be able to see a specific path that is of interest to me, or to cluster the path, the most popular path that leads to something. Why would I do that? Because if I will be able to find the most popular path that leads to something, whenever a new user comes in and is not going that route, I'll be able to help him go in the right direction, or I understand that he's not belong to this behavioral segment. So a path can be a quick path to buy. There are people who don't care. They know what they want. They do step 1, step 2, click, buy. There are others who are more wandering around. Try this product, try the other product, and so forth. You know, there's a term called ROPO in e-commerce. Anyone knows what ROPO means? So I'll tell you. ROPO is research online, purchase offline. Today is becoming different. It's research offline, purchase online. You go to a store, you look at the shirt, but then you search it online and you buy it. It's a really big trend. Now you want to identify those people. So you're able to see a path of people who usually don't buy, or their research, and so forth. You want to find the most popular path in your application. If I ask you what people usually do in your site, on your application, you will probably not know what are the most popular or different things that yields to a specific action. So here an example how you can build or cluster the group of people that, for example, in this case, I want to path it within session, how many of them passed the gate 4 times and then did anything, but at least 10 steps in this session. So they did at least 10 things, but in that day they passed the gate 4 times in the game, for example. here's an example how you can evaluate those things and find, out of the blue, people can say that discovery, out of the blue, what are the most popular or most specific path that yield to something. So this is an example of path analysis. Now see how easy it is and how intuitive it is for you to apply your business logic or your business world into your terms or your event into such a thing. Now, what is a funnel? A funnel is a specific path that I want to explore. So if in the previous thing you saw that there are different paths here, I want to click on this specific path and I want to explore it. Funnel is a known path that I want to understand. Now, usually it is very straightforward. I want to know what is the funnel from the people who attended an event, how many of them buy something, and out of that, how many really use the product. So a funnel is, I want to understand the funnel. Usually in a funnel you have a time frame. Within 30 days, how many of the people who search for an item add it to the basket and they bought it? I give you 30 days to convert. We call it conversion window. What is the conversion window for those users to do a specific action? And you know what? I want to see where the funnel dropped. Where is the place that people usually dropped? You know where they drop, but they need to pay, right? But maybe in a specific, maybe if I'll do something, then the drop will be different. Or maybe within this funnel, a different group of people behave differently. So here an example how you can select the user IDs in the region, whatever, and all you do is cluster funnel by 30 days, start with search, followed by search results, followed by item page, end with pass gate. And by the way, I want to get some regular SQL into it, so I want to group it by gender. Does a gender has a different behavior for the funnel? So what you can also do, not just do a regular funnel, you can even go and group it by a specific property. Maybe I'll group it by a different device. Do people on Android behave differently than people on iPhone? Any guess? Yes. Why? We don't care. Why we don't care? Because we try to understand why based on their behavior. If they behave in a specific manner, let's try to discover why they behave like that, and then we'll be able to target them or to offer them a better service. Now you can say because iPhone is cooler, it's cleaner, that's all true maybe, but you try to understand how they behave and how they use. People use the game differently on an iPhone than on an Android, on a tablet versus a web, and so forth and so forth. You want to understand their behavior and then drill down to any cause that leads to that thing. So this is what we call funnel analysis. So the whole notion of behavioral analytics, event-based data, is coming from the notion that all we care is how people behave or how devices behave, just because, not because we don't really care about the people, because we don't really know them. And we want to segment them based on their behavior. Now this is usually not enough because it's very nice to see how people behave within my site, within my application. But I might want to embed that with data that I know. For example, how much money I spent on advertising for a specific campaign, and how much money I get from publishers on my site or on my application. Now if I could combine all the three together, I could calculate the ROI, my return on investments. So if I'll be able to get irregular data, structured data, what we call the traditional data, bring it together, combine it with the behavior of people, then I'll be able to calculate the return on my investments. Because you know today, anyone here what is LTV? Lifetime value? The lifetime value of a customer. Everyone here, in using any service, the company who offers the service, try to give you a price tag. What is your lifetime value? If you are in a retail or in a bank or in a telco, your lifetime value or your value will be how much you pay every month. But if you're using a service which is free, we would probably measure you based on the virality. How many times you share an item in Facebook? How much time you spend on the item? Does people who share an item to others are more likely to bring better people that will share it again? Does virality influence retention? That's how you try and measure the value of a user. Because in the new world, it's not about what we call direct monetization. It's about value based on their behavior. Based on the behavior of the user, I can calculate the value. I can understand how much they mean to me as a company and how much do I need to invest in them. Now, if we could understand the behavior of the users, combine it with traditional data, that would be very powerful. And that's exactly where CoolaData come to play. We say that if you can run regular queries, embed them with behavioral query, that's probably would be a very powerful thing. Now, I just want to show you maybe 5 minutes of how it looks like, and thing that you're probably not really used to. Now, everybody can actually see. Here's an example. You would usually used to see how many active users do I have, right? How many sessions do they have? What is the geo distribution they have? That's what we call the KPI data, the data that lets you monitor the business. What you do want to understand a little bit more is retention, cohort analysis. From the people who view an item based on a source, how many of them purchase them? Which means, which source is more powerful, is more valuable to me? Or many from the people who did something, how many abandoned the cart by weeks later and so forth. So the next generation of analytics guys or behavioral guys, they will use this type of analysis on an ongoing basis, to understand how people behave, cluster it in the group, and then target them. The same thing would be with path analysis. I want to see a specific path. I can actually click on a specific path and target those specific users. Or I would be going to a funnel. From the people who view an item, how many of them add to cart and how many of them purchased. But maybe that's not enough. I want to see how this splits based on different countries. Is there any influence for the country? And you see if the funnel behave almost the same way compared to different countries. Now I might want to target the people who dropped on this place. And then I will say, okay, I want to export the churn users. I want to get the people who churned on the second step. And just to get a notion, that would be the Coola SQL, the behavioral extension. I will simply select the user ID, and then I want to get the people from a specific country, and I set the cluster funnel that starts with item view, not followed by item cart. That's how you would very easily target or get specific users who behave in a specific way. Now, this is just, in a nutshell, an idea of behavioral analytics, extension of SQL language with behavioral language in order to let you understand how people behave over time. Now there's many gaming companies, online companies, but eventually all the other enterprise and regular and devices will try to understand and analyze things in that way. So with that, I want to leave you with the notion of behavioral analytics, extended SQL analytics, and I want you to take home the notion that we need to change the way people think, not just slice and dice, but see how people behave, how things happen over time, and for that, we need a simple language that will be available for everyone, and an infrastructure and a database behind it that will be able to do it very fast and very interactive. Now, I want to bring a partner of ours, a company called Appjolt, that we're working with, and to take it to a specific level that we try to see the user journey all the way from the time someone installs an application to see how he behaves over time. But there is something which a lot of people don't know is when do people uninstall the application? And Appjolt has something unique which we thought would be interesting for you to hear and to explain how we close the loop, how important it is to close the loop together. So Eyal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tomer. So Tomer invited me today to speak about my company Appjolt. I'm the co-founder and CEO. Basically what we've done at Appjolt is build a very unique mobile SDK for both Android and iOS developers. We target specifically mobile developers. I don't know how many of you here, or I'm sure a lot of the companies that you work for or you work with have a mobile application. What we've decided to do is, unlike retention, as Tomer was saying, where users love you, unfortunately sometimes they fall out of love, so they end up uninstalling the application. And basically what we've done is build a unique SDK when you add to your mobile application, allow you to finally track your uninstallations on a daily basis. So basically allows you to take the uninstall event and marry it together with all of the cool data that CoolaData has, and essentially allow you to track everything that you're tracking today through CoolaData. So let's say if you do cohort analysis, path analysis, any segmentation that you're doing today, take it all the way to the uninstallation event. So why is it important? As Tomer was saying before, let's say you're buying a lot of media. If you've seen a lot of the ads on Facebook, you've seen that a lot of them are install-based ads for different applications. If you're spending a lot of money on media, right? Let's say you're buying different segmentations, female, males, different age groups, right? Users are signing up, they're actually coming in. Let's say you have a game application, they're playing the game, and let's say you're using CoolaData, you're tracking everything that they're doing within the application. Right now, with Appjolt, you can actually marry the uninstallation data and know if a user, let's say, that you've acquired on Facebook, let's say for $2 or $3, drop off at a certain level. So now you can actually know when they're actually uninstalling. Is it male, is it female? Are you paying more for females versus males for a certain age category? Are they dropping off at a certain level, let's say? The uninstallation data is very important to marry with the actual data that you're currently collecting. Basically what we've done now with one of our largest developers is a casino developer. Basically what we do is not only let you analyze the uninstallation. For our Android developers, we've taken it a step further. Basically we've built additional tools that allow them to try to recapture the users. So basically now when the user uninstalls, you can actually show them a customized message to either survey and find out why they're uninstalling the application in the first place. And then also you can actually try to recapture the user. Tell them, wait, maybe you want to install our application again. Maybe you want to give them additional incentives like coins, or if you're an e-commerce application and you want to give them a coupon to continue using your application, you're able to do that through our system with the Android SDK that we have. So basically what we've done is taking everything that has to do with uninstallations and marry that with all of the cool, again, data that CoolaData collects and allow you not only to track, but also try to recapture users and survey users and gain valuable feedback. I'd love to answer any questions later on. If you have, more than welcome to go to our website, appjolt.com. And again, we're in collaboration with CoolaData, and be happy to answer any questions you have after the end of the lecture. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Eyal. Now, we have a special guest that is joining us here from Coca-Cola. I will let him introduce himself, and we want to talk to you about what Coca-Cola thinks about behavioral, what they do with it, and why it is so important for them. So, Bill, you're welcome.
Thank you. So I am Bill Maynard. I am responsible for innovation at Coca-Cola, and I'm also part of our enterprise architecture team. I don't actually think I need a microphone, by the way. I'm loud enough that I don't think I need a microphone. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we got engaged with CoolaData, because I think that's actually a really cool story. So we have a thing called the Bridge at Coca-Cola, and it's essentially we go out and look for what we think are the best and brightest technology startups. We really like Tel Aviv, mostly because it's really cool and there's a great beach there. But there's also a lot of great technologists there. So our Bridge program identifies, we go through, I don't know, 300, 400 interviews, and we look for probably what we think is the best technology applicable to our business, applicable to every business. And we don't really want anything from these startups. We're really just trying to get engaged with the startup community. As you guys may know, Coca-Cola is kind of an older company. So looking at new technology and new ways is something that's really different for us. So we discovered CoolaData, or I don't know if we discovered, but we certainly landed on CoolaData. And a lot of us, our eyes lit up, and we just thought, wow, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to see. We had been looking at a lot of different ways to try and do some of the same things, and we realized just exactly how far behind we were when we sat in a room with some of the folks from CoolaData for about 30 minutes. It really was kind of like, all right, this is where we need to be, this is what we need to be looking at. So that's kind of what I do. I am a dork, so I'm a total nerd. I didn't bring any slides, so I'm that kind of nerd. I have no slides. I don't really like doing slides, and I really like doing presentations. And what I like to do is have discussions with people. There's a hell of a lot more of you than I expected, but so I very much like the discussion, and that's why we're going to kind of do this a little bit differently, as opposed to me just doing slide work, because it would really just say nerd. I do have something for you. What behavioral analytics have we been able to learn, have we gleaned from having this many geeks in a room and the number of beverages that were on that table? Does anybody learn anything? Yes?
The beer went very quickly. And
Boom. Enough said, right? No machine learning required. This many people, more beer. Simple. Point, yeah? All right. So
I would be interested to see, I didn't look at the table often enough to find this out, but I would have been interested to see which beers went first and what we should have provided next time.
See, I like the way she's thinking, right? So this is, I actually kind of had a little count going because I had to open a couple of people's bottles, so the Budweiser went really fast. I don't know why. Budweiser went really quick.
I have the PPR, so I don't know. We won't see eye to eye.
We'll talk later. So come back. So we had a great conversation today. I'll tell you guys a little bit about what we are trying to accomplish at Coke. Obviously, we have a great number of consumers. We're sort of fond of them, and we really like when they buy our product. We're trying to learn more about our consumers, day in and day out. It's about the right product, the right time, for the right person. I mean, that's really what we're trying to accomplish. The more we can do to learn what our consumers are doing, the smarter we'll be, right? I mean, we do not, a lot of people think of Coke as a big, huge, rich company. We are actually not a big, huge, rich company. We like to use our ad dollars smart. We like to use them in a way that we can share content and we can get to as many consumers as possible. So the way to do that is to find out what our consumers are doing. To that end, we sort of divide our consumer data up into a couple of different categories. We have this section of I do data, which I think is pretty basic stuff. We all know about it. And it used to be really expensive, right? 10 years ago, if you were in this, you had to buy that data. Now you can get it free. People give it to you from Facebook, Twitter, all of that. They just declare who they are and tell you what they like and what they love. That data is freely obtained. The other data is the I do data, and we think that's the data that's most valuable.
The first one was I am. You said
I am. Yeah, did I say it backwards?
I am.
You know what? A couple drinks, whatever. Couple of
Other
cocktails.
things do it well.
A couple of cocktails, a little bit of heat. You know, that's all good. Yeah, so I am being the declarative data, I do being the data that we want to learn from what people are doing. So we've developed a specification for that. And what we try to do is really get things in groupings, right? So we think this is probably a very significant area to start to gather that really smart data and to be able to start to identify our consumers, not in a creepy way, right? There's this kind of very thin line are any of you guys marketers? Like any of you guys in marketing? Yeah? So you guys all know the definition of the difference between cool and creepy, right? It's a really, really thin line. Like, I don't mind if my friends tell me happy birthday, but I would really not like for the company that I work for to tell me happy birthday. I just think that's creepy. Right? This is a little weird. So we kind of want to be able to get to that level of smart, intelligent ways of engaging our consumer.
I think it's interesting to share, as we discussed, when you say I do for devices and for people, and how at Coca-Cola, CoolaData, it's mixed with me, how Coca-Cola is differentiated between devices and people, and what do you actually do, which is not brand. Because there are people who think Coca-Cola, you sell it through retail, just do brand recognition. But a lot of activities and things that you do is a direct thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to look at the notion of learning, right? Of learning from what we're doing. Not only our purchase patterns, which I think is what everybody gets really keyed up on. You mentioned devices, right? So for us, there are a lot of different types of devices. We just call them things, right? There's just so many. We tried to put it on a slide once, and we just ran out of different things, right? There's a screen, there's coolers, there's trucks that have beacons. Everything we do, for all intents and purposes, is reporting some form of data. And we think that being able to use that data in a lot of different manners, whether it be diagnostics or whether it be predictive analytics to say when we're going to run out of stock, this is all stuff that puts our product in your hands at the right time when you need it, right? So being able to look at, I'll take the device. My favorite device thing is really nerdy, so it's not sexy at all, right? Somebody gave me an Apple Watch and said I should wear it. Let's watch. My sort of favorite device use case really builds around the idea that we have these coolers, and in these coolers we have a variety of parts, right? And we have to actually send somebody in a truck to go service those coolers. It's really, really expensive, and in markets like India, where the price of a Coke's like 30 cents, right? To send somebody out to service a cooler costs roughly $100. What we want to be able to do is be able to predict if that cooler is going to go down. If there's some form of diagnostic that's happening, that we're starting to see a trend, that we can send somebody out, sort of preemptively, so that we're not having to lose stock and send somebody with a truck and send a part in overnight so that we get that done. That cost over the size of our markets, that costs us a fortune. So to do something as simple as that, and it sounds really basic, right? Especially for you, it sounds like super basic to be able to just analyze if something's starting to run hot. We all know when our servers run hot, right? Really easy. If our CPUs are spiking, if something's going crazy, why can't we do that with our devices? Because we don't collect the data, and we really don't have the capacity to go over that data and manage it and analyze it the way we should. Again, that's back to what you've been doing for a long time. And that's back to what we think CoolaData really gives us really gives us a shot to take some of that data and get really smart with it, right? Since we have a room full of you, I hate the term big data, right?
It's big.
You know what?
I said it's liquid.
I work at Coke. Everything we do is big, right? I mean, it's all big, right? If you go to Google and say big data, they just giggle, right? Like, what's big in comparison to Coca-Cola or Google? So calling it big data, smart data, that's way more useful, and that's way more like sort of sellable, if you will, to the business people that us IT people have to deal with every day.
Now, with regards to how people behave, how Coca-Cola really get to the people, how they behave. You gave me an example of a FIFA event that you sponsor and how you would try to do something with them.
Yeah, so from a consumer perspective, it is all about engagement, right? I mean, it's one thing to get you to buy a Coke, right? And everybody should go do that right when they leave. Just run out and buy a Coke. It's one thing to get that to happen. It's something else to have you come back to one of our properties, not specifically because it's about Coke, but because you actually love the event that's going on. So for FIFA, we created an app. I won't go into the specifics of it. It's a big Google application that we created. At the end of the day, I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Yeah, don't say that about it. At the end of the day, it was essentially, it took photos from all of our fans. They would go, they would take pictures of themselves at a FIFA event. They submitted those photos to us, and then we were able to make a huge happiness flag. Maybe some of you saw it, or a lot of people used it, and it was really, really good for our brand. What was probably not as good for our brand was that we weren't able to track all of the activities that were going on inside of that event. So for me, our perfect world would be somewhere in line with, there's a set of activities that are going on, we're all sharing photos, we're all in the same location, we all love the same team. Inside of that series of events, we're able to actually, we, Coca-Cola, as a marketing brand, would be able to go change our campaign or modify our campaign to speak to you directly in the midst of the campaign. So that's a real-time designation of, I see this activity, I expected this activity, let me do some things that drive the consumers to come back, to drive them to be more engaged with a specific property. That's, again, I think we're all shooting for that. And anybody that's here and anybody that's looking at the idea of behavioral analytics, you have to be thinking that, right? You have to be thinking, how do I get to them? And how do I know, right? There's nothing I hate worse than getting spam, right? It just makes no sense to me. If my own company sent it to me, I would delete it just as well. If my company sends it to you as a brand advertisement, that's not very good. And I don't think we do much of that, but I think we can get a lot tighter with how we reach out to all of our consumers and drive that engagement through understanding what you're doing.
So I think that we can open some Q&A if you have about what we do or what Coca-Cola is doing in that sense. Eric, I think we can open just Q&As. Cool. So we have like 10-15 minutes for Q&A in that area, so feel free to ask, and you and I will be able to answer.
Before we do Q&A, I just want to give a great big round of applause to our three speakers, Tomer and Pabil and Eyal. You had your hand up somewhere over in that direction? Yeah.
Hi, so this is a question about Coke and your advertising. So I guess you sell to bottlers who sell to distributors, and we buy Coke in a store. So if you run a campaign, what are you typically looking at in your purchasing in the future to see if it was successful, or are you just going based off of like statistics your DSP or your agency might give you? Like, how do you determine whether your marketing is working?
So there's a lot of things that go into that, to the tune of sales around the area, right? I mean, they can actually literally within like the Super Bowl area, you can sort of watch the sales start to spike up. They do it from there's a variety of metrics that we look for. Generally it's sales, right? Generally it's some notion that we're getting more into this. We have this thing called the Hub. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, where we're really monitoring and looking through a lot of stuff that's going on essentially social networks. We see when traffic is good, we see when traffic is bad. Again, I think we do a really good job of not being creepy with that. But we do traditional kind of sales things. We look to see where it's spiking, we look to see what's happening with unit cases being sold. And it's somewhat difficult at times, right? Because there are, in the US, for example, it's a plus or minus 2% business most of the time. But when you see an actual spike around an event, it's pretty out there. Right? It jumps out at you. FIFA is one of those things. The Olympics is one of those things. We literally see the sales start to bump.
Yes.
When you do cohort analysis, is your product able to take predefined cohort groups and report them? For example, like the census, the Bureau of the Census has several predefined cohort groups. If I went to use your product, could I use that definition with your product?
Yes, actually the whole idea is that you can define any cohort that you want online. You don't need to predefine anything. But then you can simply rerun this cohort analysis and get those specific users or or people you want to target based on this specific cohort. So you can predefine cohort, but then you can change anything with the cohort criteria or question as part of the code. So now you want to see people who churn after 2 days or after 3 days. You want to see correlation between one event and another, and so forth. So you can you don't need to predefine anything. You can dynamically ask any question and not prepare the data in advance. That's the whole idea.
No, I understand that, but in many businesses, you may already have a group that you want to.
Oh yeah. You can define what we call a calculated group or a virtual segment that you can apply and then group it by this specific attribute of those users. Definitely, yes.
So you're primarily an offline business. All meaningful transactions happen offline. But you're obviously very sophisticated in your business strategy. How are you tying some of this offline behavior to the online activity, especially when you talk about personalization? Specifically, are you working with point-of-sale data or other companies that have helped you that these sort of, individual or sort of group-wise correlation?
Right. So we do a little bit. We do a little bit of all of that. The interesting thing. I'm sorry.
Can you repeat the question, please? I didn't hear it.
It was long. You want to try that? You want to go for that? What types of data we're using? Point of sale, material. What? On offline. Like what types of data we're using? And again, it's a big place, right? And we have a ton of markets. We do a bit of everything. What's probably maybe more interesting to people, especially in this line, we don't own a lot of our own data, so we're consistently sort of getting that data from other sources. And that's what we're trying to pull in. We're actually trying to pull that data back in so that the company owns it itself. Again, we do one of everything. Sometimes we do 3 of everything. So that data coming from our bottlers, coming from all of our outlets, and a variety of outlets that are very traditional, right? And very odd, traditional, like literally donkeys carrying Coke up to the top of the hill kind of traditional outlets. So all of that data is fed back in a variety of different ways. And we use as much as we can when we can.
For CoolaData, I'm curious, how do you collect the data in the first place?
So data can be collected via our SDKs. So you can install our SDKs on your iOS, Android, web, or call apps via REST API, or you can even upload files in any specific format, JSON format, and so forth. So you would usually install, you could take it offline later on to understand better. But the whole notion is that you send us event from the application, from the device, and we collect it.
All right, that's all the time we have for tonight, but Eyal, Tomer, and Bill will be here for one-on-one questions. Feel free to come up now and ask. Thank you all for coming.